Mango Math presents Interested, a pre-algebra game. Interested is a pre-algebra game where students will use variables to represent number and write expressions when solving multiple steps in real world. The math terms is interest, a payment made by a bank or other financial institution for the use of money deposited in an account. Rate, the amount charged per unit. The principal, relating to the initial amount of money that was invested. Time is the duration of the event. And percent is a number out of 100. The supplies that are provided in the pouch, along with your information sheet and guide, will be deposit slips that each student will have. There are 4 different ones. They'll have a 1,000 die, a 12-sided die, a 6-sided die, some pawns, dry erase marker, and a calculator. Students are going to start by laying out the game board. They are going to put a pawn in each one of the corners. It can correspond with the color pawn you have, or you can just put whatever pawn you want on what other color. The object of the game is to move around the game board. Each dollar sign represents a space, and they're trying to get to each financial picture on the board. So there's everything from banks to capital to blue chips to bonds to Wall Street. They are going to have their pawn, and with that, they're going to roll the dice, which is going to tell them how many spaces they move. They're going to move their pawn that many spaces on the board. And once they reach a financial institution, they're going to roll the other dice. And each one of these dice represents something else. The 12-sided dice is going to represent the number of months or the number of years. I would start with years first and then go to months once you've mastered it, because months will be a fractional amount out of a year. They will also have the thousands dice, which is going to represent their principal that they originally invest, the amount of money that they originally invest in the market. But they can also, in game 2, they can also use it as the interest that they gain, but it's going to generate the large number that you need. And then the final dice is a 7 to 12 die, and that's going to be your interest rate. So that die, when you roll it, is going to tell you what interest rate you're using. So the students are going to start with their little bank statement, their little ledger, and they are going to have the first game be figuring out interest earned. So they're going to roll the thousands dice. First, they're going to put in the date. They're going to roll the thousands dice. That's going to give them their principal. They're going to write that in. That's 5,000. They're going to roll the 12-sided dice. That's going to give them the number of years. In this case, it's 7 years. Then they're going to roll the 7 through 12 dice, and that's going to give them their interest rate. In this case, they have an interest rate of 8% or 0.08. So from that, they're going to have to figure out what is the interest that they earned. So when they put in $5,000 over 7 years, each year earning 8%, what's the amount that they earned at the end of that amount of time? So they're going to use the interest rate formula, which is I equals PRT, where I is the interest. So it's going to be the 5,000, which is your principal, times your rate, which is 0.08 or 8%, times the number of years. And that's going to get them the total of $2,800 that they earn at the end of those 7 years. So they're going to write that amount in, and then they're going to total that with their principal. So they've had started out with $5,000. They earned, after 7 years, $2,800, and they're going to add those two numbers together. So they're going to continue that and do that for every space, every row that there's on there. So there's a total of 5 different rolls that are going to happen to generate those numbers. So once they've generated all their numbers, they're going to come up with subtotal, which is they earned $31,970. Now, this part I added in, but it's not accurate, so don't think that this is the normal, but it's kind of went along with some trends in what percent we pay in taxes off of money that we have invested. So in this one, you would look at your $31,970. That falls within the 25% tax rate bracket. So you're going to have to figure out what the tax rate that you have had to pay for that amount. And you will have to pay 25%, which is $7,992.50, which you'll subtract from your total amount, which will give you $23,842.50. Now, this is very simplistic on what taxes really are and the whole gambit of the economy system and economics, I should say. So, but this just kind of gives the kids an idea of how the numbers are used. So that's the first game. The students will do that. In the second game, students will have the opportunity of figuring out what is the principal interest. What was the principal interest that they had? So in this one, the mathematics is a little bit different, and we're also going to use a 12-sided dice to represent how many months. Since there's 12 months in a year, it's going to tell us how many months the money was in, the interest that we earned, how much money was deposited in. So this one, the mathematics is a little bit different. We're going to start with our date. We're going to roll the dice. We've got the thousands, and that's going to tell us the interest earned. So that's $5,000 of interest that we earned off an amount of money that we put in. The next dice is going to tell us what percent was used to get that interest, and we had 8%. And we're going to roll the other dice, which is going to tell us how many months out of the year, how many months it took for us to earn $5,000, and we did it in 6 months. So it's going to be 6 months out of 12 months, which is 0.5 or 5%. So, or 50%, excuse me. So it's 50% or half of that amount of months have passed. So they're going to do the mathematics on it. It's a little bit different because we have different we have different values here. So we have I equals PRT. In this case, we know the interest. We're trying to figure out principal. So we're going to do the I divided by the R and the T, because the R and the T are on the other side. We have to divide each side by that amount. So we're going to take I divided by RT equals P. So then we're going to take the 5,000, divide it by our interest rate times time, which is going to give us an amount, which that amount is $125,000. So we originally put in $125,000. After 6 months, we earned $5,000 in interest rate because we had the interest rate, which gets us a total amount of $130,000 that we earned that month. Now, once again, the interest rate on here truly it would be a year's interest rate of 8%, but because we're using fractional amounts, because each month that is applied to this problem. So they will do that then for the rest of each of the ledger amounts for each month, and we will come up with so the dates on here are incorrect because they went off of the other ones. I just copied the dates down, so disregard the dates. But the amounts are correct. You will figure out what your interest rate is. Obviously, we're going to have a much larger amount of money because interest we earned is thousands of dollars. So $1,000 off of a short amount of time, we had to obviously invest a lot of money to begin with. So we're going to go through the same process of adding that up, coming up with our tax rate, subtracting that tax rate from our total amount to come up with our amount after taxes. So that's kind of, it's just a very, once again, it's a very simplistic way to get kids to understand how the interest rates are applied and how we figure out that amount. Some guided questions to promote critical thinking. Explain what I equals PRT means. How would you solve for time? Or how would you solve for rate? How would you solve for principal? And when figuring out the final amount earned, what numbers needed to be added together? So just some simple questions on that one, because there's a lot of thought in doing this one, but it really is just the beginning of a much bigger problem, but it breaks it down into a fashion in which they can start to understand and grasp the concepts.